Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our next installment of this crazy clown show that we call the Justice Revolution. I am your host, James the Patriot. Happy Friday to you all. Friday, March the 24th in the year of our Lord, 2023. I have with me my ever so faithful co-hosts, Erica and Justice. Say hello, ladies.
Hey.
We have a special guest with us today. We didn't announce this ahead of time, so here we are. I'm thrilled to have Kirk Pendergrass from Kirk's Law Corner back on with us. Kirk, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, brother. How are you?
Oh, great. It's always a great day. Well, I say that tongue-in-cheek where it's snowing here on the 24th of March. We talked about this before we went live. I am ready for spring. Just bring it on. You know, I'm an outdoor guy. I like to go out and play golf. I like to go ride my dirt bike with my son. I want to get out and do something. And every time it snows, don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for the water. But my goodness, I guess all these people here in Utah who've been praying for water, just stop it. Stop it. We got it now. We're good.
Up in the mountains. Oh, wait.
Yes.
We are in the mountains.
We are in the mountains. I know. We don't have much of a choice there.
You know, my elevation here just in town here is like 2,700.
Yeah, so you're lower than
hills are right there, and at the tippy top where it's over 6,000 feet.
Yeah. See where my house sits, I'm at 4,500 feet above sea level.
Yeah.
So anyway, so guys, we have a lot to cover today. Adrian, I'm glad to see you're here. Freeman Learning, glad to see you're here. Oh my gosh, Justice, you're gonna laugh. Our mutual friend Renee is calling me right now. You're on mute, by the way. So anyway, glad to see you guys are here. Thanks for joining us live. I realize it looks like we're having some issues on our Facebook live stream. That's totally fine. I'm not so concerned about that.
I'm going to be silent for a while because I'm working on that. So
okay, all right.
Muted. Okay.
Leave it to my ever so trustful producer, Justice. She'll take care of it. So. Anyway, Erica, give us an update. What's new in your world since last we spoke?
Well, and everybody go check out where you live now too, because the purple dead nettle is blooming everywhere. I'm always encouraged to see that because that means spring's almost here, and it's really good for allergies. So if you tend to get some springtime allergies, then just harvest some of that and start making some tea. Little tiny purple flowers all over the place, and there's a square stem. So you'll see it. Just look around.
Nice. Yeah, my father-in-law, I love the man like he's my own father, but he used to say this silly little thing. He's like, spring has sprung, the grass is riz, but I wonder where all the birdies is. So we haven't even had the grass is riz yet. Spring has not sprung.
Oh, it definitely has here. The birds are going crazy. All the flowers are popping up. Everything's green. So it's pretty encouraging. Yeah,
I'm so jealous. I'm actually headed out of town the first part of next week to Virginia and West Virginia. So I'm looking forward to seeing some green, I hope.
Yeah.
So anyway, guys, I want to give you some updates on a few things. Gosh, a big freaking week has happened. Let me get your thoughts real quick, you two, Kirk and Erica. What do you think about this crap that's been going down with the Manhattan DA trying to bring charges against Trump? I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
I don't think about any of it. I just got to be honest. I'm telling you, I'm the person in the world right now who's working to keep the vibrations high. All I'm doing is thinking about all the great things that I'm going to be doing very soon. Like we're working on moving onto this property, and we're working on doing healing and teaching people the true law and who they really are, and teaching about freedom and self-governance and self-sustainability. And yes. I'm just full of hope and joy all the time. If I even dip my toe into any of that stuff, it's just like, what? And I can't do that to you guys. I'm keeping the vibrations high for everybody here. So yeah, it's just theater. It's all stuff they care about. If it's not happening to me right here in this moment, then just let them do whatever they're doing. And then
because they're going to do it anyway. That's a good point.
Do it anyway. Yeah.
Very good point. Very good point. What about you, Kirk?
Well, I'll start with a maxim of law here.
Oh, great. Now we're going right into the deep end. Okay, sounds good.
Well, fundamental principles. I think we need to have this frequent reoccurrence to fundamental principles. And
Nope, I agree. I agree.
maxim of law is a rule of law, so it's a principle. And it is the defendant by pleading or exception becomes the plaintiff. So in this instance, this is what's really going on is that these are false claims. It's all based on fraud. It's all a lie, right? Where's all the affidavits under penalty of perjury or under oath is what it should be, oath or affirmation to support this claim.
Yep.
And as kind of just seeing here, just as of yesterday, that the grand jury is going, I think we're going to hold off, and we're under investigation by Congress, 3 different committees. Previous deputy prosecuting attorneys under him over there resigned. And then what's the go-to here? The root of all evil is greed, right? Follow the money. Gee, isn't it alleged? I'll say alleged that this was Soros-backed funding for Braggs to go after Trump. And he came right out and said that's what he was going to do. I'm going to go after Trump. I'm going to take Trump. Oh, big mistake, dude.
Yeah.
Because the corruption is being taken down. And there is what I have dubbed before as the change of the guard with this last election cycle when it came to Congress. Even here in Idaho, we had 51% changeover in the House and Senate. So
yes.
I call it the first step of the change of the guard. So, the storm, I wonder if that has to do with Stormy Daniels and going in and taking down the corrupt judicial branch, which part of my sources are saying there's some stuff going to be going on with the judicial branch nationwide.
I sure hope so.
That'd be great.
I sure hope so.
There's something in the works. I'm not sure. I can't put my finger on it exactly what it will be, but I think some of these courts are actually going to get closed down. Criminal and civil courts, when we're at war, per the Lieber Code there, is supposed to be closed.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if it has to do with, I noticed that you posted in your Telegram group, this looks like it was from World Tribune, where the House Judiciary Committee, guess who just happens to chair that committee? Jim Jordan. and I don't know if you've seen this. I know I have in watching anything that Jim Jordan does is he is just a no nonsense, no BS kind of guy and just puts it right into your face, which is what I love about him. So he's investigating Bragg, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him do what you're talking about there, Kirk, where he starts investigating. Well, wait a minute, we're getting a lot of complaints, i.e., petitions for redress of grievances from citizens of this great republic who are asserting their constitutionally protected rights. Now, this is something I've always been keen on this. I know Kirk has as well. We do not have constitutionally granted rights. We have constitutionally secured rights. Let's just be very clear on that. So I wouldn't be surprised to see what you're talking about. I sure hope so, because I had a conversation with a good friend of mine, Eric, you know him, Brandon, the big sib. He and I were talking about our frustrations with, some of these judicial activists, for lack of a better term, because that's what they are. They're just, they were appointed judges in some of these federal district courts, and they just make rulings based on their gut feelings. The law be damned, the rule of law be damned, due process of law be damned. They don't seem to care. They're just, the prevailing wisdom of the day is, I'll give you a great example. The Supreme Court just came out and struck down a ruling so they overturned a ruling in the Court of Appeals and the District Court that granted, and I'm paraphrasing here, I apologize, but it was a ruling where they granted abortion rights actives or abortion rights of some kind. I don't remember what the deal was. All 8 justices, with the exception of 1, concurred. Want to take a guess who that one was, Erica or Kirk? Do you guys know who that one justice would say no, that they can go ahead and do that?
Would that be Roberts?
No, I was surprised. I'll give you a hint. She is the newest justice to the court.
Amy? No,
not her.
Oh, okay.
Nope, not her. It's that Ketanji Jackson Brown, whatever.
Oh, no. Are you serious?
Yeah, remember the one who couldn't even tell Congress what was in Article 5 of the Constitution?
Or what is a woman?
What is a woman?
Yeah,
Well,
right,
I'm not a, I'm not a, I'm not a doctor. So really, do we really need to get into these things? I mean, I just, my favorite, here's where I'm at. For all of you who have questions, go watch Kindergarten Cop. If you have questions, go watch Kindergarten Cop. There's 2 lines from that movie I love. One of them is not a tumor.
Can I ask a question or simple statement here?
Go
Pull
ahead.
down your pants and look.
Oh, this is
that
asinine.
simple.
We shouldn't have to be doing this. This is asinine.
No.
But anyway, I digress.
Part of this is, if you pay attention to history and the Communist Manifesto, this is war tactics.
Mhm.
This is a psychological war, and if you know it, it's funny, it's entertaining. Some people are destroying themselves, though, but it is war. These little children that are mutilating themselves is just beyond evil.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, it's
I was, and I apologize. I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here because I'm having fun with this. But I was listening to. You guys know I love the broadcast, and we know. Have you heard of that broadcast,
Yeah.
Kirk? And we know.
Oh yeah,
Familiar, LT. So I like to listen to his. That's kind of, for me, that's my news roundup. That's what I listen to see what's going on. And he's had that comedian Jim Brewer on before, who I think is hilarious. And he was going through this. He was going through this routine, and he's like, because he was talking about the spy balloons, right? And he's like, "Do you seriously think the Chinese would have done that? I mean, everything all of our entire existence runs on the chips made in China. All of these things, and you think they would be stupid enough to do something that dumb?" He's like, "Their kids graduate from school at 8 years old with a master's degree, and our kids can't even decide what they want to be, a boy or a girl."
I shared a meme out there that says, in my day we had Wonder Woman. In today's day and age, we wonder if it's a woman.
Oh, it's so true. Adrian, gosh, you hit the nail on the head there. We mirror 1930s Germany right now. It's so sad. But this is why we're doing what we're doing. And this is why I invited Kirk to join me today. We're going to talk about some really, really good things. Because again, if we, the people, hence my banner behind me, if we, the people, don't know what our rights are as they're laid down by our creator and by the common frickin' sense, hence common law, then we don't have rights. It's just that simple. So before we get into the topic of the show, Justice keeps trying to fix the Facebook thing, but I want Justice to jump back on because I'm going to give you guys a quick update in her situation. We filed on, what's today? Friday. There you are. Okay. So, Justice, you and I met on Wednesday, and what did we do on Wednesday?
We filed our lawsuit against the mortgage company and
We did.
the peons that don't know any better.
The stupid liar, as I call him, right? Who claims to hide behind his bar card. So we filed. So here's what's happening for those of you, and I'm sure you guys have all been following, but for those of you who haven't, or maybe you're joining us from Kirk's channel, we have, for lack of a better term, we have corrupt banks trying to steal Justice's home.
Well, yes, I initiated asking for some information, and their retaliation was, well, we'll just foreclose on you. So
exactly,
they tried to extort my husband and I during COVID. And yes. I said, well, you can't do that. Show me you have the authority to do that. And this was their retaliation. So
yeah, she called them out on it. They basically said, well, you're going to pay us, it was something like $40,000 all up once, or we're going to foreclose. It's like, okay, that constitutes an impossibility.
Well, they did want to do a modification, but I said, I'm not going into contract with you because you haven't proved that I'm in contract with you or that you have my word.
Exactly. So we did an episode on this a while ago. You guys, I'd encourage you, if you haven't seen that or listened to it, go back and watch or listen to it. We're on all the podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify. I don't remember the other one, but anyway.
Pretty much all of them. Cloud Hub.
Yeah, we're on them all. Go back and listen to it. But here's the gist of what happens. When you sign that mortgage note, the promissory note, there's 2 things that are created and required by, I gotta get my fingers in the right spot. There's 2 things that are created that are required by law in order for anybody to enforce it. So there's the promissory note, that's your promise to repay. There's the deed of trust, which is the security agreement of your property. Because land is land. You can't pick it up and move it. It's here. Can't go anywhere. So those two things must go together. Go back to the old Sesame Street thing, right? One of these things is not like the other. You can't have one without the other. Can't have a deed of trust without a promissory note. That's my little song. Thanks, Erica. Appreciate you laughing at my stupid jokes.
It was funny.
If I may.
Yeah, please.
So the thing that you said there was that the promissory note is that we make the promise to pay. That's not actually accurate. This is a promissory note.
Correct.
Okay.
Here, let me get you
so
right here.
Promissory notes have the same exact face value as this note does.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It even says right here, what does that say? This note is legal tender, okay, for all debts, public and private. So when you do a promissory note, it's who made the promise to pay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So Congress made the promise to discharge all the debts. This is part of, in the scheme of things, is how and why the Federal Reserve got set up, and all the birth certificates in 1913, and then the third and final bankruptcy of 1933 is give us all your gold, your land, both public and private, and we want your souls. Because that's what the birth certificate is about, is they want our souls. This is under ecclesiastical law and all that happy fancy stuff. But so the thing is what I've discovered, even in a friend of mine here, his mortgage paperwork, it said something in there. They were going to create a separate account and deposit this amount of money into his account. He had up to 2 years to come claim the account. I'm like, I'm reading this in his contract, 2.5 inches thick there. And I found in fine print there somewhere, oh yeah, we're going to set this up. And I'm like, what the heck? So that's essentially what they're doing, is they're taking the promissory note, they're cashing it in, and then they're saying that we're putting it in this account over here and you have to come claim it. And then what we're finding is, fiscal years, 2 years, every 2 years, they have to do their own internal audit of the banking system and report their profits and losses and gains and all that good stuff. And so what happens is, if you got this bank account that hasn't been claimed, say it was a $250,000 promissory note.
Mm-hmm.
So you got this $250,000 sitting in this bank account over here, but the bank's not entitled to have that. So they have to sell it off to get it off the books, which is essentially why it's sold every 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody new owns it. Somebody else has it. Where's the promissory note? Did you cash it in? What'd you do with it? Now we need a full forensic audit. If you're going to talk about foreclosing on something you're saying that I owe a debt on, debt validation. Let's validate the debt, and then who did what, where, and when, and then we need a full forensic audit on all transactions, occurrences, and events. I want certified copies, everything. Let's get the record clear.
Yep.
Well,
that's exactly.
We initially asked for a certified copy, or I asked for the documents with the wet signature, and you'd think they would go, well, we'll give you a certified copy, but they just sent me a photocopy.
Photocopy of what anybody could have gone to the county recorder and downloaded off the website. There's no difference. So and
when it comes to the promissory note, you have to actually holder of.
You have to own it.
Yes.
Bring the note. Here's the problem is something interesting. They securitized it. They're doing their fractional reserve banking and all this other hokey pokey stuff, which is exactly what's being busted right now.
Yes.
Silicon
Valley Bank, anyone? I'm just saying.
There you go. There's a perfect example. The QFS, we're switching from the SWIFT system to the QFS, which is Quantum Financial System. Everything gets quantified. So every transactions, occurrences, and events regarding money transfers is quantified. And it's checked for fraud. And this is part of what's really going on with that stuff, is they're looking for the drug cartels, the human trafficking payments, all the stuff they've been funneling through whatever, all their back channels in the banking system. A lot of people are still stuck on Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030 that, oh my gosh, we're going to all digital currency and they're going to control everything. Yeah, that was the plan. And that may still be their plan. But that's not in reality what's really going on right now.
Just look at what's going on. Yeah. Just look at it. I mean,
Crash it.
this just popped up in the chat, and I just got to throw this up on the screen. And I'm going to do my very best Jerry Maguire impression here. Show me the contract. Good stuff. Question everything. And that's the truth. And that's the truth. Yes. So in Justice's case, she sent qualified written request. And remember, that's important because that's codified in the federal law. You guys remember this code, right? The federal code. Whose actions do they govern? Not ours, as men and women. Kirk, whose actions are those supposed to govern?
Well, that would be that mala prohibitum, and we can only prohibit the conduct of those members. Right?
Yep.
That's Article 6, Clause 3 as a citizen, or Book 1, Chapter 19, Subsection 212 of Law of Nations, the definition of a citizen. So you have to, does McDonald's corporate bylaws policy apply to the general public out here?
No.
There's your answer right there. And a couple of different cases out there. Any legislation by Congress only applies to federal and state actors. American Jurisprudence, Volume 16, Constitutional Law, Section 2. Statutes are for government civil conduct. But the reality is they're not statutes. That's all code. It's the Roman civil law.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're being misapplied upon us all the time. But here, let me just catch up to speed real quick with Justice, and we'll jump into the topic at hand. But so in Justice's case, what we ended up doing was got in touch with a fantastic individual. His name is Joe Esquivel. He works with the Fraud Stoppers team. And he said, okay, let's take a look at this. He said, send me your deed of trust, send me the most recent copy of the note you have, and send me any other filings from the county recorder stating where the loan was either bought or sold or transferred. So Justice did that. And he came back and said, well, okay, here's a problem. What they've done, and this is the best way he explained it that I can explain it, is he says, and I don't have a picture here for those of you watching. He said, imagine what your mortgage is a cup with water in it, right? You can't have one without the other. You can have the cup with no water, but you can't have the water without the cup. And he said, what they've done is they've taken the water out of the cup and tried to sell it to somebody else, i.e. the debt stream is what he calls this. But the problem is, and this is why this is so rampant, and I'm sure, Kirk, you know this, being under the not the SWIFT system, excuse me. The SWIFT system is these major banking corporations. It's a lot easier for them to do things electronically, obviously, right? You sign a document. Well, let's just scan it into the computer and we'll put it up on a, for lack of a better term, a for sale board somewhere, and let's see who buys it. Oh, you bought it? Great. Pay us the money. And then here you go. And they think in their mind it's done. But there's these pesky things that every state has and the federal government has under the Uniform Commercial Code. Oh gosh, there's that code again. Again, whose actions do they govern? These morons. And they're put into place to protect us. So what happens is under the Uniform Commercial Code, you cannot sell a debt instrument without A, endorsing it, signing it, and B, physically delivering it to whoever bought it. So if I'm here in Utah and I sign that note and I want to sell it to someone in New York, I got to physically deliver it to them. Is that feasible for these banks to do thousands of these types of transactions every single day, every single month? It's just not. So what do? They hedge their bets. They're like, okay, we're just going to do it anyway, and if they catch us, then we'll pay out. But we're going to go on the side of, well, how many people do you think are going to catch us, and how many people do you think are actually going to sue us? Well, let's say a couple hundred. Okay.
Yeah, the cost of business.
It's just the risk in their mind.
Into the budget.
Exactly. So what Justice? Sorry, go ahead, Justice.
A good analogy, James, it popped into my head the other day, would be the same as we all know how valuable a car title is. You've got to have that piece of paper. You can't send somebody a copy of your car title when you sell the car. They have to have the title. They can't have a photocopy. It's not.
Got to be the original title. Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Right.
That's a great analogy. You're absolutely right. So like if I wanted to sell my truck to Joe Blow down the street and I'm like, hey, I don't have a copy of the original title, but here's a photocopy of it. This will work.
Right.
Do you think if he goes to try
And
and
it's not signed, so but
exactly, do you think
ahead.
that's gonna carry any water whatsoever? No.
Nope.
So what Justice and I did is Joe Esquivel, he did a forensic audit on this, and he found, so we had this entity that's some asset trust group in New York claiming to own the note. He has somebody he works with that has access to all of this information. He pulled up that asset trust, and guess what's not in that asset trust? Can you guys believe this? Guess what's not there? Justice's loan is not there.
Imagine that.
Can you believe that? Nowhere to be found. I know, Erica, you're all shocked. Like, oh,
Show me the transaction where you transferred money from whoever to me, from your bank to me.
Exactly. It's not there. It's not there. So what we have is we now have some imaginary entity that's trying to steal Justice's property. So I did a little digging, found out the CEO of this corporation. Well, guess what? He is now being named directly on that suit. Tough luck, Buttercup. You knew what you were signing up for. Okay. Second party is the mortgage servicing company, the company that actually takes the payments. So this is a new one, not the one previous. They keep demanding money from Justice. She keeps demanding verification and validation. Excuse me. They have failed to prove so. So they just went ahead and hired a local liar and said, hey, start foreclosure proceedings on this property. So they are named the second defendant along with their president and CEO. He's now being named on the suit as well. And then just for good measure, this is one of the things that irritates me. So here in Utah, under our conveyance laws, the trustees that actually conduct these sales are held harmless of any action like quiet title action or anything like that. However, this is what I love about lawsuits. That people can be sued in two different ways, right, guys? In their official capacity and
personal capacity.
Personal or individual. So I looked at the county records. The county records named the law firm this guy works for, but they didn't name him directly. So I named him directly because as a liar, which is that's my loving term I give to attorneys. As a liar, he has a duty and an obligation under the rules of professional conduct to verify and investigate the claims his clients are making to ensure that they're the truth. And he failed to do that when he just went ahead and filed a notice of default with the county recorder and filed a trustee's notice of intent to sell. So
after the worst part is that we've already filed a lawsuit on them. So this is the second one, right?
Yes.
And
yeah.
You'd think after the first time it was the same company, same law firm,
Yep.
that they would at least do some more investigation.
Nope.
Because it's not like we didn't give them a clue in the first one that we might know what we're looking for.
Yeah. No, that first lawsuit got thrown out on a technicality, basically. In full disclosure, I have nothing to hide. It was the first time I'd ever written up a lawsuit going against mortgage companies. I took what I thought was a good cause of action, but it wasn't. However, this lawsuit, we now have, not only do we have good causes of action, number two, I have indisputable evidence of it. They cannot prove anywhere that they followed the Utah law regarding the sale and transfer of promissory notes, tangible instruments as they're known by. They can't prove it. So they have no standing. So they're committing fraud upon the court. Well, actually, they're not even in court because Utah is one of those stupid states that allows people to just foreclose non-judicially. That's going to change. I'm going to make it my personal mission to make sure that changes.
Oh, that's great.
So,
I'll help you.
So yes, question everything. They have the burden of proof to show how you owe the debt and the terms you agreed to. That's true. The problem is if you're in a state that doesn't require judicial foreclosures, how do you get them to come to the table when you're sending them qualified written request after request and they're not complying? So the only way you can do that is you have to initiate your own action, which is sad, but that's where it is. So we did that on Wednesday, just so everybody's aware. They're trying to move up this foreclosure sale the first week of April, but we're not going to let them happen. So,
well, if I may, the other thing there is you talk about, oh, they have this immunity and stuff. This is where we have to understand the right, and part of the right of petitioning the legislature for the redress of grievances is that there's no special privileges or immunities shall ever be granted that cannot be altered, revoked, or repealed by the legislature.
yes.
Okay. So this is part of that due process of law where the right dictates that we go to the legislature, and it's a political lawsuit. Back to Hill versus Henkel, there's a reserved right in the legislature to do an investigation to see if that corporation has exceeded the laws of its creation. And so this is how we remove their immunity from being sued in your lawsuit there. But like what we were talking about before, about the prosecutor over there trying to go after Trump, what's going on? It's in Congress. It's in a committee. It's under investigation by the legislative branch. We really need to start utilizing the legislative branch where all of the political power is exercised, because this is a political argument, not a judicial one. The judicial branch literally has zero subject matter jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Period.
Yep. And you're absolutely right. So that's why I'm saying that's once we get this issue resolved with justice, the next thing I'm going to be working on is a petition to the legislature for redress grievances. And that is going to be based on the fact that you have all of these rogue mortgage companies violating people's rights, committing fraud every single day, all day long. And these poor people just don't think they can do anything about it. So they just lay down and just come take my house.
And we have to make sure we include the judges that are also in bed with these companies, because it's already been proven. So
yes. Yeah. Wasn't that, what state was that in? Was it Connecticut?
Connecticut. Yeah.
Connecticut. Yes. There was they had federal, I think it was federal criminal charges against a judge or a couple of them.
11 or 12.
Yeah. It was a big network. They were just running through these mortgage frauds. So anyway, here we are, half a freaking hour into the show.
Onto them, they might wise up, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you guys! I always come to these shows with the best of intentions to get to the topic within the first 10 minutes, and here we are, 33 minutes into the show.
Well, it was a big day. It's exciting. We ask everybody for their positive energy, because think about it. What this comes through, we can help so many people.
Yeah, we absolutely can.
Yeah,
so
and then the goal is to then take it RICO, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to prove RICO action. But the nice thing is, you get a couple of these judicial cases. You have to initiate the cases and get those done in your favor. Guess what? Hey, that's now evidence. The court can take judicial notice of that. So I'm going to go ahead and use that in my RICO complaint: racketeering and influence corrupt organizations. What else could this be? They're stealing my property. They're stealing my money. What else could it be? So with that, Kirk hit on a couple of things. Let's jump into the topic at hand here. The enumerated powers of Congress. What can they do? Do you guys know what enumerated means? Erica, Justice, you guys familiar with that term?
They're numbered.
What's
They're
that?
listed. They're specifically listed.
Okay. Specifically listed? You're absolutely right. So enumerated means, here, I'm going to share my screen for those of you who are watching. So yes, enumerated means exactly that. If it's written down here, this is what you can do. So I'm going to take you back to, let me take you back to a history lesson real quick. So back in 1786, 87-ish, Kirk, if I got that right, 1786, 87, sometime right around there. You had you had the founding fathers were all meeting at the convention, the Congressional Convention in Philadelphia, and they're like, "Okay, guys, we got a problem. The Articles of Confederation don't quite do it for us. We got states fighting with each other. We don't have enough power here to really make this a cohesive unit. We need to rethink things here." So they got down and they sat down and they started writing all of their wish lists, if you will, their wants. What kind of powers should we grant a centralized i.e. federal form of government. What kind of powers should we give them? Well, there was the obvious things that came up. Well, there needs to be a need for a military, be able to raise a military, a navy to protect our borders, because at the time that was the only way to access the United States was through the ocean. Canada and Mexico hadn't been around just quite yet. So all of these other things that you guys think of, they came down. Well, there was a number of concerns. Obviously, they had just defeated a tyrant king. They had just thrown off those bands that bind them. I can't talk today. It must be Friday. Those bounds that bind them. There we go. Thank you, Thomas Jefferson. So they had just thrown off the king. They kicked out the redcoats. And they're like, well, our biggest fear is something like that again. How do we ensure that? They came up, well, here's what we're going to do. If we hold this truth to be self-evident, that all political power is inherent in we the people, well, then the only way the government can do anything, right? Go back to the Declaration of Independence, that a government derives its just powers from the consent of the governed. So we give their consent to allow them to do these things. So when they sat down to write down what powers Congress could do, they were called enumerated powers. Enumerated is just a fancy word for written down. And nothing that is written down here is not rooted in common sense, i.e. common law. Okay? We clear so far? Everybody clear on that?
Yep.
Yes, Kirk?
When we talk about enumerated, and good answers out here, numbered, listed. The reality here is, and then the delegated authority. So what we're actually talking about is contract law.
Exactly.
Okay. When you look at the Constitution, it's written in contract form. Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, Article 4. Okay, that's contract. That is in the form of a contract.
Yes.
Anybody, look at your contracts. What is it going to look like? Looks just like the Constitution.
Yes.
So when we're talking about enumerated powers, is in fact a delegation of power. And part of the ideology that's been adopted by the bar is that, well, if the Constitution doesn't say that we can't do it, then we can, which is opposite of contract law.
That's not
is
how it
a
works.
delegation of power. So like where we're going to look at right here, what you're looking at now, when we get to Article 1, Section 8, that is the primary part of the contract where the enumerated delegations of powers are at, and the limitation, which is Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17.
Yes.
Of the actual territorial jurisdiction, also known as location jurisdiction.
What Kirk said just hit the nail on the head, because I was going to get there, but I'm glad you brought it up now. Because this is exactly what this is. This is a contract. And see, the founders, they knew this. They're like, okay, we have got to have something that binds one party to the people, that binds these people to we the people. How do we do that? Well, they knew they couldn't force a contract on people who hadn't been born yet. So for those of you who have been told or have been led to believe that you are required to follow the duties of the Constitution, as long as it doesn't infringe on anyone else's rights, that's a bald-faced lie. Again, here's Friday. I can't talk again. A bald-faced lie. You don't have to. Okay? But who does? And this is what the founders, this is why they're such geniuses. Because they're like, well, let's do this. Let's write everything down that the federal government shall have power to do. Shall means must. Okay? But every time you see shall, that is must.
Well, it's mandatory.
Mandatory.
Mandatory
It is
language.
Mandatory. Yes. So they said anybody who is put into public service must swear an oath to support and defend the Constitution. Now they are bound to the terms of that contract.
That's pull up Article 6, Clause 3. It says all the aforementioned members And all of the state legislature, executive, all the judicial, both state and federal, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. Okay. So this goes right back to the definition of a citizen from Law of Nations, Book 1, Chapter 19, subsection 212. It uses the words in there is that a citizen is a member of a civil society who are bound to perform certain duties and are subject to its authority. Yes. The Constitution is the instrument of government. It's the contract. We require the Article 6, Clause Article 6, Clause 3.
Oath of office.
Like what it says there. It uses the words members and bound, and it's shall be bound. Okay. So there's your citizens that are bound to perform certain duties, which is also referred to in Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8 as emoluments. An emolument is any advantage, profit, or gain received due to one's position of employment or holding of office. So what are the emoluments of the office? And are they have to be bound to perform those duties and then they're subject to this authority because they're bound by it.
Yes.
And if you're not a member of the legislative branch, executive branch, or judicial branch, either state or federal, none of the Constitution applies.
Nope.
Now, except for when you go to claim your rights, to exercise your rights. This is why it's the right of petition. The right dictates where the process is that is due to them. Right? So this is where we get into a split of due process of law. It depends on who it is. Like if you're talking an elected official, it's required per the Constitution that the sole power of impeachment is in the House. They do their articles of impeachment. Then it goes over to the Senate for trial. And in fact, the House becomes the prosecutor. The House prosecutes the claims for impeachment. And it's up to the Senate to decide. Well, like it says in the Constitution, if it's the president, well, then the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court comes over to the legislative branch and presides over there.
Yep.
But this all happens in the legislative branch, not the judicial branch.
90% of the issues that we face should be taken to the legislative branch.
Absolutely.
A great, again, to Kirk's point, a great example of this, what we showed you earlier today. The House Judiciary Committee launching an investigation into a corrupt district attorney's office, as they should. Now that they took it up on their own to do that, but if one of the people had submitted a petition to the either to Jim Jordan or to the clerk of the House or anybody there, then they could have taken that up that way as well. Etane puts up a great question here. I'm going to read this again for those of you who are listening. Etane has this question. He says, we agreed Congress could fund art and science, but where did we give them the power to give it to foreign countries when their job is to benefit we, the people of the United States? You're absolutely right, Etane.
Absolutely.
This is why I'm going over the enumerated powers, because as Kirk just mentioned, if it's not specifically written here that they can do it, they are prohibited from doing it. But what do? They do it anyway. Because again, they're hedging their bet of who's going to catch us? Well, I'm here to tell you right now. The chickens.
Our numbers are growing. That's what's happening.
The chickens are coming home to roost. So let's talk real quick about the specific powers that they are granted, and let's talk about the misconception of that. So the first, under Section 8, Article 1, Section 8, Enumerated Powers, Clause 1, the General Welfare Clause, it states the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States, but all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. There's that word shall again, right? Here's a big problem with this. You see a lot of idiots, and that's what they are, in Congress that look at this word, the general welfare, and they interpret that to mean, well, so we have the power to promote the general welfare, so let's go ahead and create legislation where we just give money to people. because that's the general welfare. Is that what that's saying there, Kirk?
Yeah.
No, the general welfare clause is to ensure, because what's the first part talking about? Lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts. Okay, we got to remember this is all about foreign commerce and importation and exportation of goods. The general welfare clause is to protect us from manufacturers who manufacture a product that may cause injury, loss, or harm to the people. That's what they're supposed to be regulating at the ports of entry. Now we have airports, and we still have our old seaports, right? But now we have airports. So at the ports, and then who's supposed to be at the ports? Wouldn't that be the military? Yeah, not an FBI, not a Homeland Security, not a this. No, the only armed body of men that's lawful per the Constitution is the militia.
Oh, that's a good one. Wait a minute. Hold that thought for a second. You mean to tell me that the only people that are allowed to be armed are the militia? And where does that state that? Second
Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. That is the right to be, a state of being free, right? And then the military is subordinate to the civil power. So we have the three different categories of the militia. We have the unorganized portion, which is, we go back to the Virginia Declaration of Rights, Articles of Confederation. I have that right here. It's a well-regulated militia composed of the body of the people trained to arms is the proper, natural, and safe defense of a free state. That standing armies in time of peace should be avoided as dangerous to liberty, and that in all cases the military should be under strict subordination to and governed by the civil power. Okay, that's Virginia Declaration of Rights, June 12, 1776, as a theoretical foundation of all government. Section 13. That is valid law right here, right now, today.
Yeah.
Okay? So the militia is the unorganized portion is every able-bodied male between the age of 18 to 64. Then we have the organized state level, and then the organized federal level, which we call military. But the military is subordinate to the militia. And in certain parts, the Posse Comitatus Act, right? The sheriff is supposed to deputize the inhabitants. Okay? Right in my own Ada County Sheriff's Manual says that the sheriff has the duty and the power to deputize the inhabitants in case of any kind of foreign invasion or internal insurrection. See, all this is supposed to work towards them, but that's it.
Yeah.
That's the only lawful armed body of men, which goes back to the Declaration of Independence, that they've erected a multitude of new offices, sending hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out our substance. They're enforcing these bills of attainder from the Roman civil law, which is also the subjecting us to a jurisdiction foreign to our law. That's in the Declaration. That's what they were talking about. The Roman civil law, the code.
Yep.
And Bouvet's Law Dictionary 1856 says that the code is the Roman civil law, and it's all enforced through bills of pains and penalties. That's Article 1, Section 9, federal, and Article 1, Section 10, prohibited to the states.
But wait a minute,
Kirk. Attainder here.
But wait a minute, Art. We don't have any bills of attainder today. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, right.
What's Title 18 United States Code? Is that not the billing code? That's your billing code.
Yeah, but Kirk, just because it's written down there and just because it says that if you're found guilty, you have to pay $1 million fine, it doesn't mean it's a bill of attainder because you're still guaranteed to go through a trial first.
Right. See, that's the bar speak, the word salad. When a bill of attainder or bill of pains and penalties is any legislation that prescribes punishment.
Period.
Because they're promising an award, but then again, okay, where does this award go to?
Exactly.
Whose pocket does this award go to?
Exactly. That's the thing right there, folks. Listen to that right there.
That proves racketeering right there. That's human trafficking, Part B. Debt, slaves, and peonage.
Exactly. So, for example, let's just say, I'm getting off on a tangent here, but I think this is important. Let's just say Kirk comes down here to Utah and slugs me in the face. I don't know why he would, but let's just say he does. Okay. So I press charges for assault and battery. Yep. Now, here in Utah, the Utah Code, as we like to talk about, says that you can be fined up to, I think it's $2,000 for each incident. So if we go through a trial and we have a jury trial, I'm just playing this out, and a jury of Kirk's peers find him guilty, is he required to pay that $2,000 to me? Do I get that $2,000? Where does that? Who gets that money? Where does it go? Erica, who gets that money?
The government?
Why does the government get the freaking money? Did the government get slugged in the face?
The government always gets the money.
They're the foxes guarding the hen house.
Exactly. Sorry, I got a little emotional there, guys. In case you can't tell, it's asinine and ridiculous to think that because Kirk did, and I'm just saying in theory here, because Kirk came and slugged me, I'm the actual victim. I have the bruises to show it. Why in the world does the government get the money? Shouldn't that come to me? Well, yes, it should, but I would actually have to file a civil claim against Kirk. Yeah. Wait a minute. What's that 7th Amendment? There's that 7th Amendment again, right? Mm-hmm. In suits at common law.
Suits at common law.
So
exceeding the value of $20, the right to a trial by a jury shall remain preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall otherwise be re-examined in any courts of the United States, except pursuant to the rules of common law. So there's a clear indication that we're supposed to have our common law courts that are not courts of the United States.
Yep.
Okay, which is what I was going to go back to is assault and battery, which is breaches of the peace. What body of law does that come from?
That's the common law.
So Declaration of Independence says, fundamentally altering our form of government, subjecting us to pretended acts of legislation, and then legislating for us in all cases whatsoever. Can any of you cite any kind of a case that's not been legislated for us?
Nope.
Just one. Give me one case that's not legislated for us.
I wish I could. I wish I could. That's the sad reality, folks. And Kirk has been saying this, and I have been saying this. You guys know, you know why I call attorneys liars. You know why I do. Because if they're swearing an allegiance and an oath to an organization that is not, I repeat, it is not part of the United States. It's not part of our fundamental form of government. BAR, right? Erica, what's BAR again? What does that stand for?
The British Accreditation Registry.
There you go. Okay. The Bar Association has taken a beautiful justice system and turned it upside down on its head and perverted every little thing. And then guess what? What do we talk about in a couple of episodes again is go back. If you guys haven't seen it or listened to it, go back and listen to our episode on how do we know if a law is a valid law, right? Because there are multiple court decisions stating that I believe there was one in Idaho recently, Kirk, wasn't there, where they said, the Idaho Code Commission or whatever, that's an unelected body. Nothing that they put together, nothing that they do is binding. All it is just quote unquote evidence, but it's not
Peterson
a real law.
Versus Peterson, Idaho Supreme Court Judge Eisman, 2014. The Idaho Code is not the law because the Code Commission has no legislative authority.
Yep. But
when you go down the rabbit hole and find out who this Code Commission is, it's the Bar.
Yep.
And so I'd actually like to point out that for me, and I'm just recommending to everybody else, stop referring to members of the Bar as attorneys and lawyers, because we all have the right to prosecute our own claims, which attorney is a prosecuting attorney to attorn. So if I cause damage to your fence, you have the right to attorn me for the damages that I caused to your fence. We have that right. So this is where, it leaves I get that the Bar leaves a bad taste in our mouth and we want to badmouth them and call them bad attorneys. And no, we all have the right to prosecute our own claims. We also have the right to defend. So defense lawyer, that's the tennis court playing the game of tennis here. Who are the parties? You have the offense and the defense. You have prosecuting attorney and you have defense lawyer.
Yep.
Has nothing to do with the Bar.
Yep.
Fundamentally and principally.
Yep, and that right is enumerated. Oh, there's that word again. That right is enumerated in the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution. And when you guys look at your state's constitutions, you're going to find that it's written the way it should have been. The first article is the rights of the people, and that's also enumerated there as well. Mm-hmm. So, but this is the point that we're talking about. The point we're trying to make here is you have an evil organization that has taken something that is simple and beautiful and corrupted the crap out of it. They have taken their members and injected them into every single state's legislature across this country. I showed you guys in that episode on how do we know if a law is valid, where here in Utah, you can look at any quote unquote proposed legislation and see that it was written by a licensed bar member. It was not written by anyone that we elected. So again, I'm not going to go back on that because we already have that episode there. I want to get to there you go. I want to get to what we're talking about right here with the enumerated powers. So we talked about the Clause 1, the General Welfare Clause. Clause 2, Congress shall have. So you guys have to remember here, this first section says Congress shall have the power to, and then there should be a colon here because that's how this goes all the way down. Mm-hmm. Congress shall have power to borrow money on the credit of the United States. Pretty simple. Congress shall have power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you guys can see, you can see all of these annotations here on that.
But here's the fundamental principle, and we go back to Federalist 45 on this particular clause. There's so much controversy on this clause. Read what it actually says: to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states. To regulate commerce with foreign nations and with the Indian tribes.
Yep.
Where does it say interstate?
It doesn't. Yeah, there is no interstate.
It's misconstruing and among the several states.
Yep. When you read the Constitution and how in its simplistic form, it's super easy to understand. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, wow, that's pretty simple to understand. I'll give you a good example. The next one. To establish a uniform rule of naturalization and uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States. Okay, makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. Naturalization. What is that? That's immigration, is it not?
Absolutely.
All right. So Congress has the authority to establish here's the thing, a uniform rule. So there's supposed to be one rule. How many immigration laws are on the books? Does anybody have a clue? Because I sure don't. There's not just one. There's a whole bunch of them. And again, we're not going to get into the details of that one. But here's the next one. Congress shall have power to coin money, regulate the value thereof and of foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures. This is a big one. Let me ask you guys this, and Kirk, I'll get your answer last. I want to ask Justice and Eric on this. Number one, is Congress A, coining money, and B, are they regulating the value thereof?
No.
I think they delegated that to the Federal Reserve, right?
Wait a second, though. Does this say that they have
Congress is not coining money or doing it? No.
No, they're not.
Okay, but hold on a second, though. Where in this clause 5, where does it say that Congress shall have the power to delegate?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. But I think they did, right? I think that's probably what they did.
So this is my 2 cents, and then I'm going to get Kirk's on this. Regulate the value thereof. What happens today that regulates the value of our monetary system? Do you guys know?
Inflation? I don't know.
Yeah, so it's inflation, but how is inflation controlled today? I mean, Kirk is smiling because he's just chomping at the bits to answer this. But
the more money you spend, the higher it is. It's supply and demand.
Okay, but who? I'm looking.
Federal Reserve.
The Federal Reserve. What does the Federal Reserve do?
They change the rates on things, right?
There you go. Do they? So you're telling me a private organization that is not affiliated with the federal government whatsoever, even though it says the Federal Reserve, they control every single aspect of our monetary system. Is that what am I to believe?
We've
I
been
think
hoodwinked.
that's how it is. Yeah, I think that's what they do.
We've been
Kirk, you want to chime in here?
Yes, Dr. Jekyll. Island, 1910.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Hyde.
But let's read that again. What does it say? To coin money. Coin, not print.
Yep.
Regulate the value thereof and of foreign coin. Now, here's the key. And fix the standard of weights and measures. That's not like the stock market's fixed or the poker table is fixed. The roulette table's fixed. That's not what the kind of fixing they're talking about.
No.
That's what they're doing. So the gold or silver, like it says later, to coin gold or silver. That's it for payments of debt.
Mhm.
So where's the coin?
Yep.
And let's get rid of the paper and
Yep.
let's get back to a fixed, which what I've heard is that we're going back to a gold-backed currency, which should be a
Gold standard.
coin.
Yep. Yep.
And we need to fix that at $40 an ounce of gold. So the inflation we're talking about, we look at how much is an ounce of gold now?
It's like
1900.
17, 18,
Yeah.
something like
19?
almost $2,000, somewhere right around there. Yeah.
An ounce.
Mhm.
Okay, so what that actually does is it takes this Federal Reserve note and it devalues the note because
Yep.
now it takes 2,000 of these to buy 1 ounce of gold. When back in the day it was 40 before these existed,
Mm-hmm.
but in today's time we'd say 40 of these to buy an ounce of gold.
Mm-hmm.
So there's your inflation, which makes your loaf of bread go from 10 cents to $3
Yep.
because this has lost its value based on the unfixing of the standards of weights and measures of gold and silver.
Yep.
So
Sorry, go ahead, Justice.
So Kirk, in the evaluation of the standards of weights and measures, would that be taking into account how readily available the resources are and what it takes to get them? In other words, again, supply and demand. So they're determining that a half an ounce coin is X amount of value because of the availability of it or the difficulty. Like I live in a silver mining town, so it's like big talk over here, right? So that's what that means, right? That they're going to determine, like, so it's the same thing. People are saying, everybody get gold and silver if everything crashes, right? But there's no fixed weights and measures right now, because if you go to hand somebody a silver coin, you might say it's worth $2,000, but the vendor might say it's only worth 50 because it's not in play at the moment. Is that what that is? Okay, just checking.
So here's the key with that is to fix that, right? It would be based off the labor that it takes to get it out of the ground
Right.
and get it to what we would say is in the people's hands or in the bank. So
Right.
This is why it was assessed back then as about $40 an ounce of gold based on what it took to mine
Right.
an ounce of gold
Right.
on average. So we fixed that back then so that it would stay firm and that the coinage reflected, hey, this is a chunk of piece of gold, which represents labor.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
And they took-
energy that was spent to dig this sucker up out of the ground.
And then they took the value out of our coins because our coins used to be silver. So
Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that have silver dimes and nickels and things, but
Yep.
then turned it into steel or whatever.
Yep. And Justice, one of my favorite things to do when I was a kid, going up to your neck of the woods up there in Park City, Utah, was the Park City Silver Mine Adventure.
Yeah.
I used to love to go to that place. It's no longer open, but they used to do tours and show it was a fascinating piece of history because that was. But going
They do
back
have
to
a
this,
museum that's open now.
they do. Okay,
yeah.
cool. I'll have to go back there. But to everybody's point, Congress is the power is given to Congress to coin money and to regulate the value thereof. Unfortunately, now what happens? You have a bunch of idiots, because again, they're all idiots, sit around in a room and determine, well, hey, should we raise rates? I don't know. Should we? Well, inflation's going out of the roof. We have to raise rates to keep inflation down. Otherwise, this whole thing is just going to go off like a bomb. As it should.
I
Read
think
the
it's
next
more
clause.
like how much
Read
can
the
we
next
profit if
clause.
we raise rates?
Wait a minute. What's
Read
the
the
next
next
clause?
clause.
Erica, read clause 6 for us, will you?
To provide for the punishment of counterfeiting the securities and current coin of the United States.
Oh, there we go.
This is
So
what's
we have our
going on
answer.
in the banking system right now, worldwide.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're counterfeiting. Absolutely.
A
Yep.
Federal Reserve note is a counterfeit
Yep.
security instrument.
Yep.
Absolutely.
It's a fraud.
If there's, we talked about this a little bit on our last episode, but if there is anyone in history that took on this fight more so than someone more recently, it was Andrew Jackson. I am no Andrew Jackson fan. I'm just going to tell you right now.
JFK Jr.
However-
as well. I mean, JFK.
Yes. However, Andrew Jackson took this fight head on. And if you guys can believe this, and Kirk, maybe you knew this, maybe you didn't. Andrew Jackson was the last president to pay off the entire national debt. Hasn't happened since. Didn't any of you guys know that?
Mm-mm.
I did not know that one.
Well,
He was the last United States president to pay off the national debt. And what's crazy is he is quoted as saying is that debt turns the people into slaves.
Mhm.
A slave owner, mind you, said this. So
I used to
Anyway.
have silver-backed. Notes.
yes. Yep. So let's move on to the next. So we've touched on some big ones. Obviously, the coining the money, providing punishment for the counterfeiting. Clause 7 to establish post offices and post roads. Pretty simple, right?
Mhm.
Office is to be able to send letters back and forth, be able to communicate. Obviously, back in the day, back in 1786, 87, when they were contemplating this, that
Mhm.
was the way to communicate. So this is an interesting one. Clause 8. To promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. What are we to make of that one, Kirk?
You know, that is a very interesting clause, but we have to go back to what we were actually the founders were talking about back then is the science, right?
Mhm.
The science of what is good and just.
Mm-hmm.
And the arts is architecture, not like a painter, that kind of stuff. This was architect, right? Engineers, building, kind of like what Trump does
Mm-hmm.
for a living.
How ironic is that, huh?
Isn't that amazing? So that's what that whole part there is about. Because think about it back in 1787, what kind of science did they actually have back then? If we're going to try and bring it to a modern term, modern definition, it wouldn't even resemble what
Nope.
the actual intent was when it was written here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even
about in Atlas Shrugged, when Hank Reardon, he developed his own steel and he should have been able to profit off of that, he felt, but they were trying to mooch from him and spread it out among the people. Maybe it's something like that, like coming up with something that's going to benefit everyone. You should be able to have intellectual property to defend your the God-given brilliance that you had, like Nikola Tesla.
Nikola Tesla.
Any of the,
Yep.
the truly
Yes,
mindful,
absolutely.
brilliant guys, instead of being robbed from the government like they were.
that's exactly what that clause is there for. Remember, going back to, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created by their creator equal, and I'm paraphrasing here, obviously. And among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So what is my right to pursue my own happiness? Well, if I come up with an invention, there it is right there, and inventors, the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. So if I invent something, like you just said, Erica, that benefits the greater good, shouldn't I be the one to benefit from that? Absolutely. The founders believe so too. To each their own.
If I may there, just to back up in the Declaration of Independence, it said to assume the powers of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of that progress of science that they're talking about. They're assuming that trying to figure out what the powers of the earth are, of the sun, electricity, which flows through the air like nobody's business.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't know how many of you have drugged your feet across the carpet and went over to turn the light switch on and hit the screw and it goes pop. I mean, there's thousands of volts right there in that little tiny spark. This stuff is just flailing around in the air right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
I heard conspiracy, of course, because everything we talk about is conspiracy, right? But Thomas Edison took the place of Nikola Tesla to make science very difficult, and you had to be very smart and all this kind of thing. And he basically was the one that was put in place to squash out Tesla's discoveries. Whether that's true or not, I never.
No, I believe that because I know Tesla was an understudy for Edison for a number of years. And the prevailing theory is that Tesla actually discovered electricity first.
Yes.
And then Edison stole it from him. So I believe that. So hey, Justice, this entire show is a conspiracy theory. You should know that. Yeah. So just so we're clear.
That's it. I'm out of here.
Say here is true.
Yeah. Go. When I invited Kirk on, our entire credibility went right out the window. So
it's all my fault.
It's all good. It's all good. All right. So let's get to the next clause. Clause 9. Oh boy. Congress shall have power to constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. Notice how the Supreme is lowercase and court is uppercase. Is there any significance to that, Kirk?
What I'm looking at here, it shows capital S. I would actually have to look at.
I'm just curious. This is just my own curiosity. Why am I not surprised he has an original copy of the Constitution sitting right there at his desk?
Yeah, I don't have my reading glasses here, but I have a kind of a real Constitution here.
Yeah.
Did you steal that?
I got it from the Supreme Court gift shop.
Oh, just like Nicolas Cage. Oh no, that was the.
Yeah.
So that's way too small of a print for me to try and read to these old eyes here. But I would like to point out this particular one is the Bill of Rights.
Okay.
I actually have a certificate of authenticity from R.J. Reynolds, where this came from.
Wow.
One of my longtime best friends, he found this at the youth ranch in the tube with the paperwork that came with it.
Wow.
And this is where I go to that it says right here in the Bill of Rights, it says articles in addition to an amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America.
Yep. They're not amendments, they're articles. Yeah.
There
was one amendment, additional articles.
Article the first, Article the second, Article the third, Article the fourth. Okay. That's what it says there.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
Articles in addition to.
Yep.
Where's my finger?
Yep.
Which finger? Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, that's again, remember, like Kirk said before, right? This is laid out like a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Contracts contain articles, sections, and clauses. You can amend a contract. I used to do real estate.
Addendums.
Yes, and we used to. I had a trainer who said, "What's the number one thing that gets real estate agents in trouble? Addendums, because it's an open license to put whatever you want on there."
Yep.
So that's absolutely
the parties agreed.
That's right. Hey, the parties agreed. But here, clause 9, to constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. Now, why, Kirk, Erica, Justice? Why do you think the founders, having, again, going to the three branches of government, one of those being the judicial branch, why would Congress be granted power to create tribunals inferior to one of the other branches? I want to get Erica and Justice's thoughts before Kirk answers. He's chomping at the bit.
To hold that branch accountable. I mean, someone has to hold them accountable too, no? Or can it not work that way?
Oh, yeah, it can work that way. Yeah. Erica, from your notes from the JBS series, the John Birch Society,
Let me see.
do you have anything in there?
Um,
By the way, while she's looking that up, everybody who's watching this, if you want fantastic, in-depth analysis of Constitution, the constitutional law, and why the Constitution is not the problem, it's the solution. Look up on YouTube the John Birch Society videos. There's a lecture series. I believe there's 6 or 7 videos. They're about an hour long each. They're great.
Yeah, and when you're done with them, you're going to be like, wait a second, there's stuff that Congress isn't supposed to do that they're doing.
Yep.
And there's stuff that they're not doing that they're supposed to.
Yep.
So why don't we just start with making sure they're doing that before we try to like have a convention of states or whatever they're trying to do next? Like,
why did you bring that up? Because I was going to talk about that, but now you had to.
Let's just go back to like the original plan and see if that one can work out. Because like 80% of the government wouldn't exist if we were following this, right? Or something like that. It's like
I would think probably closer to 90% of the government.
Most of the problems that we have as private men and women are because they're not following this. So why don't we just try to like go back to like seeing if we can just go back to that first thing?
Erica, Erica, that would be too simple. We don't believe in being simple around here. We want to, if it's not complicated, it's not worth doing.
Well, and that's why people don't get involved in learning the law or learning to support themselves, because they look and they see how hard the Bar Association licensed members make it, and it intimidates everyone, and it makes everybody think I could never learn that, I can never do that. Yep. But that's why I'm so glad we're doing this, because this is the stuff we need to be teaching our children. We need to know it ourselves so that we can be like, no, this is how it is now is not the way it should be. And let's start working on making it the way it should be.
Right.
You know, it's interesting. It's interesting you say that, because when Justice and I were at the courthouse on Wednesday filing her lawsuit, there was another gentleman there who was trying to fill out some paperwork. He was trying to file a motion. And I just kind of overheard this in passing. It sounded like the attorney or whoever he had hired had decided to just skip town, and he was now on his own. And he was asking questions, and I couldn't. Justice knows I couldn't help myself. I just had to say, "Hey, what are you trying to do here, bud? No, that's not what you want to do. You want to do this. You want to do this." And and that's just. Sometimes my mouth gets the best of me.
No, you cut back down. We need to get you a cape.
No, so my mouth gets the best of me, and then somebody thought it'd be a good idea to give me a microphone and a platform. So here I am. But no, what my point I'm trying to make here is this man. I don't know what his situation was or what it was in relation to. It was a civil case of some kind, and he was just like, okay, so, but do I want this? I mean, what it was is something related to a hearing. I was like, yes, you want a hearing. You always want a hearing. You have a right to be heard, and gosh darn it, you're going to make sure you get heard. So,
yeah,
but
very confusing. It's intended that way. So
it was. Mm-hmm. So why, Kirk? Why did Congress, why did the founders grant Congress? And I say the founders, we the people. Why did we the people grant Congress the power to constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court?
Yes, I'm dying to know.
Well, first, I'd like to call Erica out for being such a conspiracy theorist, because she's so logical over there. Why would you dare follow what the letter of the law says as it is written? What's wrong with you, Erica? You and I are kind of on the same wavelength. Maybe it's just common sense stuff. People.
Wait a minute. There's that word again. Common sense. Oh, geez.
Right? Common sense is not common, apparently.
Apparently not.
No.
Did you go to grade school? Did you pass? So constituting inferior tribunals. So pursuant to Article 4, Section 3, new states may be admitted to the Union. And as we expanded, we needed to have Congress have the ability to create more of these courts of the United States, right? So this is in pursuant that this power is delegated to Congress to constitute these military tribunals, because that's really what it is a tribunal, military tribunal under Admiralty jurisdiction. If you read Article 3, Section 2, the only two kinds of real jurisdiction that's in there is Admiralty and maritime. Where else? I don't see any other jurisdiction enumerated under Article 3. So this was the plan for future contingencies as new states joined the Union, or new territory was acquired by the people of all the states in the Union. that Congress has the authority to admit them to the Union, which they're supposed to do an organic act pursuant to Article 4, Section 3, and institute the government, right? Create the basic organic law of creation, which goes into Article 4, Section 4 of guaranteeing a Republican form of government, which is why Congress has the power to create that pursuant to this particular section of Article 1, Section 8 and Article 4, Section 3.
Okay. That's a great point. Does that answer your question, Erica?
Yeah, it was so simple, Kirk. Thank you for making it so concise for me to get it.
Kirk believes in the KISS theory. He's all about keeping it simple. So,
well, okay, my brain does the same thing with numbers, right? Like,
yeah,
my brain will skip over numbers when I'm reading it just because it's like too much input. I can't do it. And then, like, when I'm even when I'm reading like Supreme Court cases, my brain will just skip over like large sections of the references because it's all blah 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 to me.
Yeah.
You know, and my brain does it when I'm listening of like Article 1, Section clause, you know, and I'm like, okay, so then I'm waiting for the meat. I'm trying to like gather it all and just get the main point. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I read it 40 times and I'm still like, I have no idea what this is saying. I gotta reach out to a buddy. I need a lifeline.
Yeah.
So this is a perfect example of why we need to take the whole Constitution in its totality so that you can comprehend even just this one clause. Mm-hmm. You have to apply it to the rest of the Constitution and put it together as a big puzzle.
Yeah. Right. That's the whole thing about the things that have been taken out of context so much, like the elastic and implied powers and the general welfare clause and the interstate commerce. Like, unless you look at it within the context of the whole thing where it's referencing itself back to everything. I mean, it's the same thing with the Internal Revenue Code, for crying out loud. Like, if you look at just the whole list of definitions and you realize that none of it's for you. Then it's like, okay, but yeah, so that's I just, you can get lost in the weeds of the details until you step back and look at the whole thing, and then you're like, okay, within the context of this, then that makes sense. They shouldn't have that.
Ladies and gentlemen, please just disregard what Erica just said as conspiracy theory under Title 26 Code USC. Thank you very much.
Now, I want to before we move on to the next two clauses, actually. The next few clauses, when we're starting to talk about the constituting tribunals, military tribunals, keep in mind of the jurisdiction that's been delegated under Article 3, Section 2. Okay, keep this in your forefront of your mind while reading these next few articles or sections of the article.
Okay, so let's do that. Clause 10, maritime crimes. Congress shall have power to define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the law of nations.
What was that location again?
On the high seas.
I don't see where it says on the land.
Nope, it doesn't.
Oh.
Okay.
Just
that's pretty self-explanatory. So again, what are we seeing today? We're seeing Congress in not just federal, we're seeing states as well go, oh, well, we're just going to interpret this to mean the land as well.
Well, is there not one for the land? Because the clause is maritime crimes, so it's specific to the seas. So is there one for the land?
No, there is not.
You're reading the law of the land right now. This is the supreme law of the land.
Okay,
I just didn't know process of law right here.
I didn't know we're going to get to a different clause somewhere else in what we're reading.
We're going to get to it. Okay. Clause 11, Congress shall have power to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water. Here's another trivia question for you guys. Okay. Kirk, you might know this. How many times in our nation's history has Congress declared war? That's the first part. And the second part is, when was the last time they did?
Oh.
Do you guys know?
The first time, the last time? I don't know.
No.
I'm going to say when they tried to mandate everybody
No, that Congress did not declare
You mean,
war
like, through
there.
the proper process of declaring war through the
No, it's just
Congress?
simple. When was the last? Let's just start there. When was the last time Congress declared war? C
Was
to
it wor-
AZ
was it
has a
World
question
War-
mark.
World War II?
World War II was the last time Congress officially declared war. How many quote unquote wars have we been involved in since then?
A lot.
You've
Well,
got, I mean,
See,
geez,
Vietnam,
just going in a
War.
timeline of events. You got the Korean War, you have the Vietnam War,
Mhm.
you got the Gulf War, you got Afghanistan, you got Iraq. I mean,
The falling of the USSR, we were involved in that as well.
there's all of it.
Yeah,
So,
is there one we weren't involved in?
oh my gosh, and we don't have enough time to talk about why we were involved in that.
Yeah.
But let's go back to my first question. How many times has Congress declared war? So we know that the last time was World War II. If you want to go back in time, we can. Kirk, do you know the answer to the question?
I actually don't know the actual number of times, but
So if we're going backwards, World War II was 1. World War I is 2. Actually, it's so hard for me to go backwards. Let me go frontwards. War of 1812 was the first time.
Yep.
Okay. What happened after the War of 1812?
Wouldn't the Declaration of the Cause and Necessity of Taking Up Arms, July 5th, 1775, or July 6th, 1775, constitute the first declaration of war?
It would be, but when did they ratify this Constitution?
Okay, so since the Constitution. So
There you go. Since the
1812.
ratification of this Constitution. 1812, what happened next? Anybody know?
The
was a-
Revolutionary War.
There was the Spanish-American War.
I was going to say, wasn't that around 1840 something there?
Yep, there was a Spanish-American War. Then there was the war with Mexico.
Yep.
So I'm up to 3. Now where do we go?
1861.
Civil War.
Civil War. Now what happened after the Civil War?
We went under
World-
martial law and never came out.
Again, a story for another day, my friend. World War I and World War II. So 6 times in our nation's history did Congress declare war.
What about the
So
war on drugs? And the war
well,
on
I mean-
terrorism and the war on this and the
Kirk, do you realize we are now at almost an hour and a half, and you keep bringing up all of these things where we could be here for another 3 or 4?
you know,
You started it.
All
I
important.
got a
know.
small head. There's
All
not,
important.
you know,
Okay, let's move on to the next clause. Clause 12. Congress shall have power to raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years. Oh my gosh. What does that mean?
I think they're in breach of contract.
Yeah.
I think that's what that means.
What was the founders' greatest fear at the time? We said it earlier. Standing. What did they just get rid of?
Standing armies. You're right.
Yes.
Yeah, perpetual
They
wars.
just-
It's what we
They had been
doing.
for, what was that, 15, 20 years? I don't know. They had the redcoats in their yards, in their homes for the last 15 to 20 years. They wanted nothing to do with it ever again.
yep.
So their greatest fear was a standing army. So according to the Constitution, they shall have power to raise and support an army, but no longer than 2 years.
Mhm.
So yeah. So
that
there's
goes
that.
back to them police officers, or known as
Mhm.
policy officers, that the king created
Mm-hmm.
back in early 1700s there.
I mean, again, hence Article 2 in the amendment to the Constitution, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the secure freedom of the people. I'm paraphrasing again. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Their idea is that the people would be the quote-unquote standing army.
Standing army, yeah.
The
So how come
people.
they're all not at the southern border?
And in the recent case there, the Bruin case, and then the Rahimi case, which just came out February 2nd, the Bruin case was June of 2022. And they say that the right of defense comes from, ready? Any guesses? Where does the right of self-defense come from?
God.
What body of law would that be?
Oh,
Ecclesiastes.
The laws of nature.
Laws of
It's
nature.
one of the 6 primitive laws of nature, and in the Rahimi case, they cite Blackstone's commentaries on the law, and Blackstone says, yeah, well, the right of self-defense comes from nature. So again, where does Congress have, one, personal jurisdiction over man and the people and the private, and where do they have subject matter jurisdiction to make regulations regarding the right to keep it wherever we want to keep it, and whether it's concealed or open carry, which if you read the Rahimi case, they go into kind of part of the history of the intent. One of the things was that the king was trying to prohibit the Protestants from keeping their arms in their homes for quick, easy access, not only to defend their homes, but defend their land and to be called to arms at any time. Didn't have to go over to the armory, the magazine or the arsenal and be handed their arms. No. We'll just go ahead and keep them where we want to keep them, so we have access to them when we need it.
Yeah, didn't they have come up with a name for that during the Revolutionary War? Oh yeah, that's right. They were called the Minutemen because they were ready at a minute's notice.
Yes.
They didn't have to go to some central armory to get their arms to do any of that stuff.
Look how far we've fallen. Like back in the
gosh.
day, they would make sure that they would come to your home and make sure you had your ammo, make sure your guns were ready and in proper working order and that you were ready to go. And now they come to us and they're like, excuse me, do you have any guns in your house? You're not allowed to carry that. You shouldn't have that.
Guess what we also didn't have? Now, mind you, the weapons back in the day were single shot rifles, but still, guess what we didn't have a lot of? We didn't have a lot of mass shootings. Okay. And we did. And even in the early part, okay, I'm going to take you guys back to the Roaring 20s. What was the weapon of choice in the Roaring 20s? Do you guys know?
Dancing.
The Gatling gun.
I wish.
Was it the Gatling?
That was only in the Southern Baptist Church.
Oh, that's right. Hallelujah. No, it was the Thompson submachine gun.
Oh, yeah. The Tommy gun.
The Tommy gun. Right? So you had all of these turf wars between the mobsters and such in Chicago and New York and such. But all else around the country, you never heard of anything else like that. Now, I digress. We're getting off on a tangent here. The point is that the founders wanted to make sure people knew that we did not want a standing army because the people will be armed and they'll maintain order. But we do need to have some way of being able to provide a barrier to invading forces. So Congress shall have power under Clause 13 to provide and maintain a navy. So the Navy, according to the Constitution, is the only military body that is supposed to be maintained all the time.
Right.
Okay. And along with that, Clause 14 is to make rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces. Pretty simple.
If I may, on that, to raise and support armies. Okay, that's a clear indication they're not supposed to actually exist.
Yeah,
they have to be raised.
Yep,
and then support. They're not supposed to have standing army, arm ye, armed body of men. Thank you.
Yep. Because, and then they go further in clauses 15 and 16. They talk about Congress shall have power to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. Oh, that's a big one.
Wait. Congress has the power to call forth who?
The militia.
Why doesn't it say Army and Navy?
That's a great question, Kirk. Why doesn't it say Army and Navy?
You know, it's interesting because, like I just said, this all along, you know, if you're rebellious or free thinking of nature, you understand what the militias in our country are anyway, which is exactly this, to protect our country. And all along, I thought to myself, how come they have not gathered down at the southern border? Are they getting bullied out by these congressional hired police and so forth? Or because you would think that all the veterans of all the armed forces would want to protect America, and they would be down there. I know some have gone, but like by and large, right? Because it's clear we're invaded. So anyway, I just spit that out.
Isn't it Congress's job to make sure everyone's maintained in the militia and funded and ready to go? That's one of the things they're not really focused on right now.
Well,
The
wait a minute.
military
Erica, you're jumping ahead. That's clause
Oh,
16.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Clause 16, Congress shall have power to provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states respectively the appointment of the officers and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. So yes, you're correct. Congress has that power. But again, this is one of those clauses where it specifically states that they are to delegate that power to the states respectively, and the appointment of their officers and the authority of training according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. So yes, going back here to make rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces. So this is where we've gotten so far away. Again, this is where they are. We don't see any of this because, we have the Army. We have the National Guard. We don't need any of that stuff.
And
You
we
see how far we
don't need to use the military against their own people.
No.
That's the thing. Like this is clear. If you look at the obvious step back moment of what the people who are armed and ready to fight are supposed to do, it's supposed to be to fight off people outside of us who are trying to attack us, not to pull us over and tell us to put our seatbelts on or whatever.
Yeah. So Adrian brings up this point. She says, it sounds to me, and I'm paraphrasing Adrian, she says, it sounds to me like Congress is mainly for international issues. I mean, based on what is happening today, I would think one could come to that conclusion, but that was not the intention of the founders in drafting this beautiful document and putting all of these powers in place. That's not what their intention was at all. They needed, again, the Articles of Confederation that was in place at the time did not go far enough. There was too many problems. They needed some way of being able to take care of the problems that were going on and deal with any foreign national things that could happen, international things that could happen. So, Clause 17, Congress shall have power to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district, not exceeding 10 miles square, as may, by secession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress, become the seat of government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be, for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. And
doesn't that seem like that's for military purposes?
That's what it sounds like to me.
That sure does.
That's what it sounds like to me. This clause is what has been, what's the word I'm looking for here, Kirk, has been interpreted to subverted, yep, to mean the seat of government, Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's supposed to be land ceded by the states.
Yep.
It's not supposed to become an independent sovereign nation state.
Nope.
It's supposed to be the seat of government.
Yep. And it was supposed to be land that was given to them by the states. Now, Washington, D.C., as those of you guys know, if Washington, D.C. were actually part of states, it would occupy portions of Maryland and Virginia, as you guys are aware. It's right there.
Actually, I've heard here recently that Virginia has actually taken back their land that was ceded.
You know, I've heard a lot of interesting
stuff going on with.
I heard a lot of interesting things about Washington, D.C. right now.
If you look at Google Maps, D.C. is no longer on Google Maps. It just says Washington. It's
interesting. All I'm saying is buckle up, folks. Things are getting interesting real quick. So,
absolutely.
Okay, Clause 18. Congress shall have power to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers, and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or officer thereof. Does that mean that Congress can make whatever law they want?
Yeah, it says they can make all laws.
No.
Oh. There's a limitation. There's a limitation there, isn't there?
Yeah, what's that limitation?
Necessary and proper to the execution.
Right here. I've got it highlighted. If you'll read that for us, Erica, for those who are listening.
Execution, the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by this Constitution. You're right. It brings it right back in.
Isn't that amazing?
It doesn't just say whatever might be necessary, because then it wouldn't be few and defined and limited.
Can you point to that emolument and grunt? I don't need you to tell me what it says. Just point to it, because if you can't point to that power in this piece of paper here, it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm. That is, guys, there's a reason why that's the last one. Mm-hmm. Okay. Look at your state's constitutions. You're going to have something very similar to it. Here in Utah, under our Declarations of Rights, it says that the provisions of this Constitution are both prohibitory and mandatory. Means, if it's not written, you can't do it. If it is written, you must do it. That's pretty simple, right? Anybody can figure that out? But they're subverting those simple truths all in the name of generating revenue for their stupid little city government or county government or state government or whatever else. These plain and simple truths that we have come to know and love have just been stripped away, and people, because they don't know it, they don't take the time to learn about it, they just go along just to get along, because we, the American people, are generally just pretty easygoing people. And the bar has figured that out. There's a reason why the American Bar Association has come out and publicly stated that 4 out of the 5 people who need a bar member can't afford him.
Right.
That's a problem.
But James, the government wouldn't subvert our rights. But the government wouldn't step outside of the laws of its own creation, the Constitution. They wouldn't do that.
No, they would not do that, would they?
You conspiracy theorist, you.
But so wait a minute though, Kirk. So I remember you going back to the Bill of Rights, and there were 10 articles in addition to, now that just because I don't want to confuse people, most people refer them to the 10 amendments. Okay, does that mean that just because those are the only things that are written, are those the only rights that we have?
Yeah, it's very limited to just those that are enumerated in the Bill of Rights.
Is it? Oh, let me show you guys my favorite. Let me show you my favorite.
The savings clause.
Because James Madison was very concerned about that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Justice, would you read this for us, please?
Okay. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people.
Okay. Do you want to give us your what does that mean? What do you guys think? What do you guys take that to mean?
That whatever they outline as rules for themselves doesn't limit me being able to do whatever I want to, just as a private woman.
Okay.
As long as I don't, violate anyone else's privacy or private rights.
Rights, exactly. Yeah, James Madison was very concerned about, he's like, hey, guys, we're putting some good stuff on the paper here. My concern is that at some point in time, someone's going to come along and say that's the only right that you have.
Right. It's not, you're not limited by those rights only.
Yeah.
You have your God-given rights.
Do you guys know, and this is something that I find fascinating. You can find all sorts of Supreme Court decisions on the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth, the Sixth. There's a handful of the Seventh, the Eighth. Do you know that you're hard pressed to find anything on the Ninth Amendment? Have you guys known that? Have you noticed that?
I know.
Because
this is to make it simple for us to know the good stuff.
Mm-mm.
See, here's the problem. Madison was so worried about this. He said, guys, we have to put this in here, that there are other rights that the people have But just because they're not listed doesn't mean they don't have those rights. And I'll give you a great example. The right to medical freedom. Is that a right we have?
Yeah.
Says who?
God.
Are you sure about that?
The autonomy of your own body. That's what America was founded on. Your personal and religious freedoms.
I'm just giving you a hard time, Justice, of course. But where under the Bill of Rights is that enumerated?
That would be First Amendment, right of religion, because religion is about conscience.
No, sorry, Kirk. It doesn't say anything about medical decisions there. And as long as there's a compelling governmental interest, we can force it upon you.
Yeah, it doesn't say anything about being able to record interactions on my cell phone.
Where does it say that Congress has the authority to have personal jurisdiction over man?
Kirk, I don't care what you're saying. It is a compelling governmental interest. Are you listening to what I'm saying right now?
Yeah. Let's read the very first part of that. The enumeration in the Constitution. Wait a minute. So this totally destroys the whole argument that, well, the Bill of Rights doesn't apply to the states except for by and through the 14th Amendment. First of all, it's a Bill of Rights. And see, they want to hide all of this fancy wording and stuff at the top portion of this Bill of Rights, which technically speaking is a standalone document. It is an amendment. So we shouldn't even be looking at Article 11, 12, 13. Those would be articles in addition to. But the Bill of Rights should be a standalone, as American Jurisprudence, Volume 16, Constitutional Law, Section 100 talks about bills of rights, and those merely declaratory of the common law, and their provisions regarding due process of law are mandatory. Well, imagine that. All of those rights that are enumerated there are already the law before we even wrote that Bill of Rights.
Yep. This is an argument that you absolutely can and should make. Any of you who are having any problems with anything that comes down to your right to choose what goes in and out of your body.
Or on your body.
Or on your body. And I'm not going to go into those details here because, we're on platforms that frown on that. But your right, it's right here. Just because it's not listed, just because it's not written down on somewhere, doesn't mean that you can force this upon me. I have the right of conscience, and you'll notice that verbiage is in a lot of your state's constitutions. The right of conscience. Here in Utah, where I live, it's listed right there under Article 1, Section 1. The right of conscience is right there. Okay, that's what the Ninth Amendment is encompassing, in addition to the First Amendment. So there was two articles that Madison wanted to make sure we added. So this was the first. I'm sure you guys know where I'm going with the second. Mm-hmm. What was the second article?
10.
The 10th Amendment. What does the 10th Amendment say? Let me get to it here.
So is anybody aware of any of the lawsuits with these rights that have obviously been thrown out the window with any states' governors? And I know the Brunson case, but that's not individual to the state's governors, which made the decisions to do what they did.
Yeah, again, Kirk and I can spend 45 hours on the Brunson case and why it didn't go the way it should have gone. That's a story for another day.
That's a whole different.
I could spend a whole lot less than that.
I'm talking about locally. Does anybody, even in the chat, is anybody aware of somebody fighting these? What had been done throughout the last few years with their governors?
Well, I can tell you. So some of the first things that I did, you guys know, some of the first things I did was to try to take that on. The issue I ran into, again, judicial activists, number one. Number two, well, this activity is not being done anymore, so you don't have a claim. Excuse me? You mean to tell me that if Kirk comes down here and punches me in the face that I can't go after him 6 months to a year to 2 years later? You're darn right I can. He violated my rights. Absolutely I can go after him. No, that's the judicial activism speaking there. But
I didn't want to sidetrack you. I was just
no, you're fine. You're fine. This is why I again and for those of you who have Justice, you posted in our Telegram group recently a video, or excuse me, it was the Bards FM, and they had Chris Ann Hall, this constitutional attorney. She is, I'll tell you what, guys, there's not a lot of bar members that I love, and I don't even know if she is one anymore. If she is, she's lucky she still has one.
Yeah, I'll find her website.
But her explanation of the Constitution and everything surrounding it is spot on. She actually, on that interview, she talked about this whole sovereign citizen movement and how it's not founded in law. Kirk will agree with me on that one. Mm-hmm. And how the best way she explains it is the best way I can. She's like, you can't go to a place like Germany and expect to not be subject to their laws. You can't go there and murder someone and think you're going to get away with it just because you're an American. That's not how it works. So, yes.
Are you sure?
Oh, I'm quite positive.
You know, being a sovereign is a natural word, right? It's a natural word.
Just when I was going to start traveling. You know?
I know.
Propaganda purposes, of course.
I know. Yes.
I'd like to point one thing out here. You know, we talk about the rights and stuff going on here, and we look in our state constitutions, specifically the Declaration of Rights portion, and we find this inalienable, but it's really unalienable. But rights of man. This is Article 1, Section 1 of our Declaration of Rights here in Idaho. All men are by nature free and equal and have certain inalienable rights, which we know that the Declaration of Independence uses unalienable, among which are enjoying and defending life. Wait a minute. From nature? Right here in our own Article 1, Section 1. And liberty. So we have the right to enjoy, defend life, and liberty, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, pursuing happiness, and securing safety.
Mm-hmm.
That's rights of man.
Yep.
There's your securing our own safety, our medical choice.
Yep.
That's a right of man from nature.
Yep.
I don't need anything, because this is part of that lex non-script of the unwritten law, even though we have the law of nations as international law. And again, the full title of the law of nations is the law of nations, or the principles of the laws of nature.
Yep.
At the root of everything.
So good.
This is what needs to be known first, because anything that comes in conflict with rights of man, the laws of nature, is void for any effect.
Yep. Again, this is why God bless James Madison. This is why he demanded that we include the 9th and 10th Amendment. And this is why, in my opinion, these two amendments are the most important articles to the Constitution. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people.
Oh, that's the part everybody forgets right there. Or the people.
See, what's happened is they're like, well, okay, so this is the states' rights. What did we see recently with the Supreme Court and the Roe v. Wade decision? Oh, this is a state right. But did they miss that part there? Or to the people? Did they miss that little nugget?
What happened to the fundamental principle that all political power is inherent in the people?
Yeah,
see, they don't want people to know that.
And what happened to exactly I was going to say in another way was who gave the state and all of them their rights.
Yeah, see, here's the funny thing. Who created the states? Oh yeah, that's right, we the people. Hence my banner behind me. Who created the states? We the people. Where did the states get their power from? We the people.
Yeah, we look at that 10th Amendment again. There's actually 3 parts to the government: your federal, your state, and the people. Yep. So a lot of people are not aware of our true Republican form of government, the commons law side of our republic, where the common law grand jury is supposed to sit, our petite jury is supposed to sit, our justices of the peace are supposed to be elected by the people, where our committees are supposed to be at the common law, our sheriffs, our county recorders, our county coroners, county recorders. All this county level government type stuff is actually from the common law and not from the Constitution.
Which brings us to where we're going to close. Article 6, Clause 2. The Supremacy Clause. This Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, remember that, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. What does that mean, Kirk? Help us understand that one.
This Constitution. That means point to that emolument and grunt.
That's right.
And the laws of the United States which shall be made pursuant thereof. Back to that Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18 or 17 and 18 more specifically. It's got to be pursuant to the Constitution. And I've had this argument for years. People say, oh, well, yeah, that Congress has the power to make that. No. I said, no. It has to be pursuant to the Constitution. Now, are statutes made pursuant to the Constitution? Because this is the fundamental argument about statutes being part of the law of the land because of that clause, and it's being misinterpreted because to make law pursuant to the Constitution, where is that requirement at? Wouldn't that be Article 5? That's the only way to make law pursuant to the Constitution. And so this goes back to like the 11th. Well, we'll start with the Bill of Rights, the 11th article, the 12th article, and the original article, the 13th, because a lot of people are aware of the original Article 13. Kicking the bar out of our country was providing the punishment for being in violation of Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8.
Yeah, they weren't allowed to be citizens.
Why didn't Congress just make a statute that says if you accept this title of nobility, you cease to be a citizen of the United States and you can no longer hold any office of public trust or blah, blah, blah. Why didn't they just do a statute?
Because it wouldn't have been the law in pursuance of the Constitution.
Because that's how we make law, pursuant to the Constitution. And that was the last time we made any law pursuant to the Constitution in the United States of America, the nation called America here, was essentially, what was it? 1819 was when it was ratified. I believe it was 1809 when it got its start. Right? Which is part of why the War of 1812 happened, because they were trying to destroy the records of even going through Congress and it being ratified by the states. And this is where people totally miss the concept about only those at the time that existed at the time that it was in convention for the original Article 13 have the power to ratify that article, that amendment. Right? Because that would be ex post facto. Anything created after the fact that doesn't have a say. Because they're supposed to join the union. New states joining the union have to accept it the way it is. And so this was part of the game that was being played back then, was starting to partition up land and making little states so they could try to outrun this, but except the problem is you didn't exist at the time. So you don't count anyways. You didn't exist when this went through, so you don't have the power to ratify it anyways.
Does anybody, I think, and that's a great point, Kirk, does anybody really understand why or how the War of 1812 started? Has anyone told you? Like, I remember going through history class, learning about the great war general Andrew Jackson down in the Battle of New Orleans, You know, there was a song about all that stuff. But do we know why did the British, why did they invade again in 1812? Does anybody know? Do you guys know?
Or losers.
I'm just remembering somebody like an Archduke Ferdinand. Somebody got shot. No,
that was World War One.
Okay, sorry, different war. Sorry, it's all jumbled in there. Just taking a stab at it.
So there's a couple things, but the biggest thing was and okay, King. What was it? Was it Richard? King Richard? I don't know. I don't remember. I think it was. Anyway, the king was ticked for one. He was a sore loser for one. However, he thought, okay, if I can't win them back over war, what am I going to do? I'm going to insert my agents through the what now? British Accreditation Registry, and I'm going to get them to subvert their laws of the land.
Yep.
And get their allegiances back to me. So what was Congress's reaction to that? The original, some people call it the lost 13th Amendment, which is hard to find. And it's been hidden for a reason by the Bar Association because it prohibits citizenship in our United States for anyone who holds any title of nobility. How many times have you guys received anything from some stupid attorney that's a bar member that says Esquire after it?
I remember you talking
about
it.
I can call myself the Prince of Duke. I don't care. That is what started the War of 1812. Congress passed that. The king was like, I can't do this. I'm losing my grip on where I'm going to go with this because the United States is a fertile and rich company, and I want all of those assets for myself.
So
well, send them back over. What were you going to say, Justice?
I was going to say, I knew it had something to do with trade, but what does that have to do with Esquire? What does that have to do with a title?
So a title of nobility, right? What do kings do? They knight people.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with trade? Wasn't it have to do with trade restrictions?
That was only a part of it. That was a small part of it, actually. Okay. So Eleanor has a great thing. She talks about the Paris Treaty. Oh, King George. Thank you, Eleanor. I couldn't remember. I knew it was one of those idiots, King Georges. He thought he was still in control of the United States. So there were you heard about the Barbary pirates, right? You guys heard about that?
Yeah.
The Barbary pirates, and there's the were you in the Marine Corps, Kirk?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's that song from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of what?
Tripoli.
Tripoli. Mm-hmm. Right. That was from the Barbary pirates who were they were coming onto American vessels and just taking everybody prisoner. And they're like, you guys are now our slaves. So that's part of it. Mm-hmm. But the biggest piece of it was the piece that nobody's ever told. And it's the fact that the king was losing his grip, his control. He's like, I can't do this. I'm going to have to take it over by military force again. And we, the American people, had to kick Britain's rear end again. Mm-hmm. So we beat you once, we'll do it again. And we did.
I got to let you in on a little secret, though. It's
no.
that police force. Okay?
Oh, no.
Yep. I've dug up some history on that and found a book many years ago, the Right to Keep and Bear Arms book, that I thought was all about the Second Amendment. But here, a good 6 months ago now, I actually read that sucker, and I'm like, wait a minute. This is all talking about the king when he first gets in there back in 1600-ish there, that he did basically a look around and was like, hey, I don't have enough men to even defend the realm, the empire.
Yep.
And so he didn't want that word to get out, anybody to find out. And he was told by his councils that, hey, if word gets out that you don't have enough men to defend, we'll be defeated overnight. Right. Yeah. And so he implemented this policy officer, and it is pronounced policy, Old English, right? A-E-I-O-U and sometimes Y. So, we don't pronounce it police like head lice. But come to find out, this book gives the timeline of everything, how it went and who did what, where, and when. I'm like, holy smokes. I'm like, why didn't I read this sooner?
What's the title of it?
The Right to Keep and Bear Arms book.
Yeah.
Is
Just
there
the
a
Right
more
to
than
Keep and
one?
Bear Arms.
Artie,
I've got a
Artie brings
PDF of it, and I'd be happy to share that out there.
Yeah, that'd be great
Yeah.
if you could pop that in.
Artie brings up the question asking if there's any historical record for that. I thought it was due to trade and expansionist conflict. It was, in part, trade and expansionist conflict. It was. You're going to be hard pressed to finding this stuff because, again, I had no clue about the original 13th article or the 13th Amendment until I was listening to one of Kirk's shows that he does on Monday nights, Kirk's Law Corner on Monday nights, and he found it and went over it.
Mhm.
So why are they hiding this from us? Why is the original? Because I was led to believe growing up that the 13th Amendment was the one that abolished slavery.
Right?
So if I go here to Cornell Law School, which is where I'm at right now, and I look at the 13th Amendment right here, Amendment 13, slavery abolished. This is what it says. Slavery is abolished. So what happened to the original 13th article? Where is it?
They hit it.
There's a lot of things that they're hiding, people. And this is why we do these shows. This is why I love, and thank you, Kirk, for coming on again. I know it was very last minute. Appreciate your time. We're going on over 2 hours now. This is probably the longest show we've ever done.
Yeah.
But I
It's all
feel
my
like
fault. Blame it on me.
it's not your fault. I've been rambling on too. But I feel like this has been very good information. And this is why I do this. I want to get as much of this information out to my brothers and sisters across this great land that I love with all my heart. You know, guys, if we don't know what our rights are, if we don't know where they come from, and if we don't know who we are as a people, what do we have?
Confusion.
We're lost.
That's it.
Tyranny.
We have
We
what
have
we're going through right now.
That's
We
right.
do.
But that's
I
what's
would-
waking everyone up. That's how it goes in cycles, right?
It
You get
is.
lazy because you're so happy, and
And it was
Hard
there for
times.
them.
I would dare, and this is my personal opinion. I would dare say that what we're seeing today, the things that we, the American people, are being put through today, is either equal to or worse than what the Patriots were before the founding of our nation.
Oh, much worse.
So
With the exception of them taking a quarter in your home.
exactly. I mean, they haven't gotten to that far yet, but who knows?
That
They
won't-
might.
That won't happen.
So, you guys, thank you so much. Kirk, thank you so much for being here. Erica, Justice, again, thank you guys for participating in our clown show that we do every week. I really love this. You guys are awesome. Everybody, thank you so much. I know we've gone longer than what we typically do, but again, I feel like it's been valuable. So, any parting thoughts, Kirk, before we go?
I just quickly shared that the statutes at large concerning slavery, which started in 1794, 1800, 1803, and then 1807, was supposed to have been done by 1808, which is what the Constitution talks about regulating immigration. By 1808, that Congress couldn't make any legislation until after 1808 because of they were slowly trying to get rid. They according to the Virginia plan in the original Virginia Constitution, or the plan, the drafted one, it said it had a clause in there: slavery is hereby abolished.
Yeah.
In 1776.
Yep. You got to look at the original draft that Thomas Jefferson wrote. He's got paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs rebuking the king of the slave trade.
Yes, absolutely. So that was part of the thing, and he just took too many whiners, back then, and they're like, "Well, but no, should have been done to begin with." And then so that brings up the question of, wait a minute, what the heck was the Civil War about? But that's again,
Topics for other days.
We do all the time, anyways.
Yep.
But so anybody who wants to get a hold of me or whatever, go to kirkslawcorner.com. I've got a links tab there. Gives you all the links to my Telegram, my Facebook, all that good stuff there to make it easy. And then as well as the library tab for some books that I've reorganized the website there for the books and started kind of in the very beginning. Treatise on Arrest and False Imprisonment, Authority of Law, which talks about a real statute and how the legislature is supposed to make law, statutes. And then Lex Parliamentary Americana, which is the elements of the law and practice of the legislative assemblies in the United States of America. That's actually the law.
Yep.
regarding political common law. So, other than that, thank you for having me on again. And man, you guys,
thank you.
So logical conspiracy theorists over there, you know.
I know. Can you,
Eric? I can't believe
even over there in Indiana, right? I mean, she's
We're
not too far away
everywhere.
from. She's not too far away from that Ohio train chemical spill, and they were dumping that nuclear waste in her backyard. But hey,
That
she's
must
still
be what's
somehow.
got me going crazy. It's getting
Apparently, she's actually
it.
thinking
Over
logically now.
in Biden's parking lot.
All right, you guys. Hey, everybody, have a great weekend. We love you. God bless you all. And until next Friday or whenever we decide to do this crazy clown show again, you guys take care.
Bye, everyone. Thanks, Kirk.
Guys.
Thank you.